All right, we are live.
Live.
Not really, not really, because this is being recorded. Because Facebook don't want the eye to be live all the time. I've been having a whole lot of difficulty lately going live for some
Mhm.
reason.
I've
I
never
don't know.
tried it.
You've
It's
never
crazy. I've never tried. Nope, I've never tried to
really.
go live.
So all
No, I've
those videos you make.
I've been on live. No, I've made sure upload videos, old school, but I've never done a live video other than I've been on a couple of interviews live, but I've never initiated a live. Mhm.
Okay, well we're
Mhm.
gonna set this thing off right, because you already saw.
Yeah,
I
cracky that. Wrong drum. I was, I was on the djembe break. I don't know much
uh-huh.
about kungas or batas or anything.
Because I am an African, and this
Mhm.
is an official thing we're doing here. I like to begin with just a little bit of drum and
Mm.
Portambico just to set the spirit, get the ancestors in, part of the conversation as well, because always have to remember that is what we do for the edification of ourselves, the remembrance of the ancestors, and for the future spirits to come. So, if you could please just uh, humor me for a second. Shay, so wanted to get the spirit in a little bit, and in keeping with that, I'm gonna pour Nico.
Okay. What's interesting is I couldn't hear anything, but I could feel the drum moving, and but I couldn't hear not one beat, but
Not really.
I felt it. Yes.
I must not. I don't. I guess I don't have a quality microphone. Pick up the vibration. So, matter of fact, I'm not using my boom right now. I'm just using the mic that came with the laptop. So, I just finished work, so I didn't have a chance to hook all that stuff up. But as we start off, we want to bring and give honor to the universal Mother, Father, God, who is and shall forever be. Amen. Who is Ra, Ashe, who is Oludumare, Ashe, who is Yemoja, Ashe, who is all that ever shall be, Ashe, the unseen and the unknown, Ashe, and the all-knowing, Ashe. Report to our great ancestors. Report to Alhaj Malik Shabazz, Ashe, Betty Shabazz, Ashe, Dr. King, Ashe, Coretta Scott King, Ashe, Harriet Tubman, Ashe, King Yan Satiwa, Ashe. Report to, and you can call out the names too, sister, if you want those represented here.
My personal ancestors,
Ashe,
Joseph
our
Mickens,
person,
Ethel
Ashe,
Tarpley,
Ashe,
Josephine Abbott,
Ashe,
Pickens' parishes, Tarpleys, Turpins, and all
Ashe,
named, known, and unknown of good character.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Report to mine, Paul White, Ashe, Halelia White, Ashe, Andrew White, Ruth White, Ashe, James White, Ashe, Catherine Doherty, Ashe. And to those, as you say, we did not know, Ashe of good character, Ashe. As we begin, so shall we end. Point to universal Mother, Father, God, who is and shall forever be. Amen. Ashe and Ra. Ashe.
Man, I said, oh,
All right. Now, today we have on the line Sister Candice. Candice, I've always referred to that name as Candice or Kandaki or, you
Kandake,
know, but
Hindike. Actually, I have
which
stories about being in Ethiopia about that name. Yes.
which do you prefer?
I know who I am. The name is pronounced many different ways. I have many different names actually. I have a lot of names. So
Okay.
I prefer them all. My father gave me the name Candace, so that my family refers to me as that such. But I have plenty of people who call it in a lot of different ways.
So, Sister Candace is a Facebook friend, and
Mhm.
I've communicated with back and forth for years. Never link up, never meet in person. I just wanted to come over here and pull
Never
my
linked up.
back and pull my neck.
The
Yeah,
elbow.
like do the George Jefferson, walk all over me. But anyway, so we've never really connected like this. So this is a very organic conversation we're about to have. Um, all we know of each other is what we post. So I assume you don't know me from Adam, really, but I'm Kamal, I'm Baba Kamal. Thank you for taking my invitation to have a conversation about the world we live in and how big and beautiful it is, and what you've experienced in your travels and um, through many rotations around the sun. Everybody, she looks 25.
but but if you reverse it, like literally,
Yeah, black
like,
don't crack. Black don't
to
crack
the
at all.
to the 5 too. Yeah, just celebrated my
What?
52nd
No,
birthday
no,
in
no, no.
April. Yes,
You're older
grateful.
than me. What? I'll be 52, job bless, in July.
Okay. We're
Okay.
right in that same. We came in Earthside at the same time. Mhm.
So 3 months older than the eye. So yeah, so this is a very organic conversation. So again, I thank you for, um agreeing to meet with me to have this conversation, because in my experience over the last, I guess I've started looking at moving out of the country probably about almost 10 years ago. I just was past 40 and quote unquote hit what they call it, a midlife crisis. So my first plan was to move on a boat, sail around the world, find a place that suited me, and then build a homestead. Well, fast forward 8 years later, finished the boat, but I have acquired some land not in another part of the world, and looking to, establish a home there and to have an easier life, to have a simpler life, not a problem-free life, because everywhere we go, there we are, and life is, constant struggle. Not a bad thing necessarily, but it is work. To live is to work. The respiration, the beating of the heart, the pumping of the blood, the growing
Mhm,
of muscles, all involves work. So we're not
mhm,
looking to not work, but we're looking for a bit more peace and a bit more
mhm,
prosperity and a
mhm.
less Babylon work, right? So I've asked the sister to come and have a conversation today about her experience in traveling the world, and what travel has helped her with, and even some thoughts of relocating somewhere else, maybe. So, Sister Candace, if you could, uh, tell us who you are and what made you sit down and want to have this conversation with me, or did I just bug you? Like, where was it?
No, so I am Candace Mickens, and the reason I wanted to do this conversation was because I'm always eager to talk about, Africa in general. I took my first journey 22 years ago to Africa, and it's been many, many journeys ever since. And I find it pretty amazing in these past few years, especially through the pandemic, how many people are stepping out of their comfort zone and traveling to the continent, whether it be for, a visit or to repatriate or whatever their circumstances are. Because when I first started traveling, I was 30 years old, and there's a lot of stories which got me there. We'd be here till next week. Sometime I'm still telling stories of my journeys. They're ever.
I got time. I don't have a watch
Yeah,
on, but I
yeah,
got
no,
time.
you don't have that type of time, but I'll pick and choose of what I'll share, because it's been a lot of 22 years is a long time to be traveling to Africa and around the world. So I have plenty stories. But one thing that I've recognized in watching people journey in these days, it seems to be a lot easier. Whereas when I was traveling, you had to go to the telecenter. to call back home, to send an email. Now, people have their phones, they have WhatsApp, so you could be literally in another country still connecting, with your loved ones, with your family. I didn't have all of that when I first started traveling. Like, and when I was gone, and it was an effort to connect back. And yeah, so my first journey, I was there 2 weeks, and kind of 1 week a touristy situation, and then next week I was in a village, no running water, no electricity. So I had kind of the best of all the worlds. And I literally came back. It's a long story, but I moved out of where I was living, rented a room, saved my money, quit my job. I was a corporate manager. I told them, I said, I'm moving. Let's say this was February. I'm moving in October to Senegal. I didn't really know what for. I didn't know why. It's a whole long story. But I ended up moving to Senegal for 6 months with another sister and a brother that she was seeing at the time, who later she married, who is now a part. Their whole village is my family, the Fulani village in Senegal. And yeah, it was life changing. It was life changing for me to just pick up and go during a time when nobody was doing that, during a time when nobody in my family really understood why my dad was just losing. Like, what is happening? What are you doing? Why? And I didn't know. It was a pilgrimage, and it was something that shifted in me and called me home.
That's me
Yeah.
raising my hand. Oh, I got a question. I got
Yeah.
a question, teacher.
Mhm.
What was the initial draw to Africa? What was the initial pull?
Yeah. So the story goes, so I was raised in, like, on the border of West Virginia. It's in the rural, it's about 45 miles from Pittsburgh, but in the mountains in a rural area, and predominantly white area, predominantly white high school, but surrounded by a lot of family, So, Black people are everywhere, no matter, we have our communities, period. And
Mhm.
although I didn't know much, I wasn't born into an African centered consciousness. I still was born into a family that valued our Blackness. And but I didn't know much about Africa. I can't say that. That wasn't my experience. So at 30 years old, I was in Mexico and met a sister, and she was just talking about her world travels. And I had never met anybody who had kind of went to multiple countries, not just in Africa, but around the world. But when she mentioned Africa, and I said, wow, I would love, to travel to Africa. And we had this conversation. I was just really blown away by this sister who had literally traveled the world. And so she reached out to me. This is back in the email times, it wasn't even phone, and said, look, I'm going back to Senegal and I'm taking a couple of friends and just wanted to let you know. And I was like, can I join, the trip? And I want to say that's literally all she wrote, but it isn't all that's been written. But that was the start. That was the impetus. And there was a lot of things that were being excavated in me in my life. You said midlife crisis. I don't think 30s midlife, but I think I was going through some type of early midlife crisis of really discovering and seeking who I was, where I was going, the depths of myself. And it started to unfold for many, 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 many journeys since then, over 22 years. So.
Oh wow, okay, cool. So you've been traveling back and forth to the continent for a while. Tell us about the initial transition from
Mhm.
corporate life to village life.
Yeah, so for me, I always tell people it wasn't hard for me at all. Like, I'm from the country. I loved connecting to trees and nature and people, and being in Africa felt like being at home to me, because the way I was raised, I could walk down the street and people could say, "I don't know who you are. You're one of those Mickenses," and which one, and they would name my dad's siblings or my dad himself, or because they could see my face and they could recognize me. I was raised like that. And so being in a village now, there was this concept of community and village life. Um, that felt natural to me. It felt natural to me to connect at that level. Of course, there were a lot of things I had to experience. One that I say is that, I hate to say it publicly, it's so embarrassing. And because now all these young children in that village. They're all grown with children and they watch Facebook and stuff. And
Right,
I'm
right.
saying it is a little embarrassing. So, but I'll say this. And it's actually kind of disgusting. Um, so I was a little bit during this, I think it was the first 2 weeks, not the when I went back to move for the 6 months or whatever. And I had two houses. We lived in the village and in the city. It was a whole combination of things. Um, going outside at night to the local, the village bathroom, which is, a dugout hole or latrine or whatever,
Mhm.
you have to
Yep,
squat
yep.
or whatever, which I didn't mind that aspect. It was the going outside at nighttime by myself. If you have to go to the bathroom and, taking your candle and finding my way out there and all of that. And yeah, I just wasn't prepared or ready for that. And so I had this this cosmetic box, like some from Sally's Beauty Supply or something that I had brought as gifts, and it was like purple and big and had like just junk in it. I took all the junk in it, so I would take and go to the bathroom, and I made myself this little kind of pot that I would go in at night and dump it out in the day and go to the bathroom and dump it because I didn't understand all the concepts surrounding how to use the bath. Like that was foreign to me. Although there were, what do you call them, outhouses and stuff when I was young. I didn't
Yeah,
have one,
yeah,
but
yeah.
so it was a little embarrassing. It's a little embarrassing.
Yeah, that's not bad. I'm a camper. We camp. And
Mhm,
sometimes when you camp, you go in the bucket and then you get rid
mhm.
of it when you get rid of it. I mean, you
Yeah,
were
yeah.
you were
So
you,
yeah,
you were creative and
I was
and you were
creative
doing it.
and made it happen. And then one day I came home and the sisters that were of the family that were helping us clean up, because dumb Americans, we didn't know what we were doing living, and there was a lot of community support with us. And I found that little, bucket all cleaned and everything put away. I felt so embarrassed. I thought I
So
hid it
you
underneath of the curtain. Like, don't get in this
so
thing.
you had the sisters cleaning your shit. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it wasn't. No, no, no. Wait, wait. Let's be
I know, I
clear.
know, I
I
know,
didn't
no.
do number two in that thing. That
Okay.
was number one only. So I held it. I held it to number two.
Well, you gotta do what you
Yeah,
gotta do.
yeah, but
Yeah.
in general, we'd have to get into very specific questions because there was so much that was unraveled and unlayered. But for me, I really was just going with the flow because, it was a calling. I was called home. I didn't know what was going on. And so I was uncovering a lot of things just in my own life and, experiencing Africa along the way. And Senegal is predominantly Muslim. So there's a lot of different cultural aspects that were at play as well. And I'm a person that like I just jump in with both feet. So it wasn't. I don't feel like it was that much of a transition for me at that time. Mhm.
Now let's talk about a village, right? You lived in a
Mhm.
literal village versus
Mhm.
what we say we have, which is community. So, like,
Mhm.
compare and contrast living
Mhm.
in the village versus what we call community here in the West.
Yeah, so it's interesting because that same village I've watched evolve, and they are still my family. We've had some members that have died in recent couple of years that I cried just like the rest of the family. They're family to me. Um, but back 22 years ago at nighttime, the whole village, this village, are all the same family. There was a chief, and he had multiple two different wives and children, and there are different houses around. Um, but at nighttime, they would watch, local TV on a TV that was connected to a car battery or something during the day. And so
Mhm.
everyone would pull their mats out, and that was kind of the nighttime entertainment. Now, I didn't know most of these shows were in French. I did learn a little bit of Wolof, and this is a Fulani village, so they spoke Pular and Wolof. But that they eat together and then watch TV and commune together and talk and baby ceremonies, weddings, all of that stuff. um it's it was a family, not just a community, you know. So I want to make that clear. There were literally
Mhm.
blood members of the family, not just ad hoc people that grew up. And I think that that's what I've seen over the years. When we talk about community and village, they're related, you know, and whether that be by marriage and building the community, it's not just we
Mm.
create it and they're, you know, um, not related. You see what I'm saying? Mm.
Yeah. Okay. So is there ever a feeling, or have you ever witnessed where here I could live next door to somebody and
Mm.
not know anything about them,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Not know them at all. um, but you know, in Africa or in other communities around the world, that type of thing is really sort of not
No,
acceptable.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And here's a story. When a friend of mine from Senegal came years ago, his first trip to the States, there was a man that lived next door down in DC who they found him in his house. He had died. He was an elder. He lived alone and he had died. And so my friend who was visiting from Senegal and just kind of experiencing this American life, he said, um, you know, nobody would ever die alone where we live. He said, because when an elder, you know, gets to an age, there's always people around because they're, you know, the community, the village is outside, you know, it's not all inside, like we're always stuck inside, you know, they're cooking outside, there's community that is ongoing. And he said, so no one ever dies without someone being in their presence. And that was very profound to me. Like, wow, we have this sense of, you know, there's isolation. And even myself during the 6 months, sometimes I didn't want to be with my friend and her, you know, fiance, then later husband. And I would stay in the city at the house we had in the city. And I remember when I'd go back to the village, they would say, are you okay? Like, are you sick? And I was like, no. And they thought I was sick because who would choose to stay by themselves versus coming, being with the rest of the family? And so these things I had to like slowly learn and unravel. And I'm not saying that I've given up all of that because I live alone now and I like my alone time. I still do. But it had me thinking about, oh, it was almost like, are you mentally ill or physically ill for choosing
Wow.
to spend a whole weekend by yourself as opposed to coming back to the village? Mm.
Wow. 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 Are you
Yeah,
mentally ill? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they didn't say
Yeah.
it in that way, but that's really what
No, no, no.
the
I understand.
yeah,
Some you're going through something, basically, is what they were asking.
mm.
So
Yeah. Are you okay?
there was a statistic I looked at yesterday. I was trying to compare when people say like the emerging world or third world countries are violent, and I was just looking up how many gun deaths occurred in the U.S. and in the last record was in 2020. There were 45,000 gun deaths in 2020.
Mm, mm,
50 plus, I think it was 52 to 56% of those gun deaths were suicides.
mm, mm.
Suicides. People choosing to delete themselves from the planet.
Mhm.
And I think that's a direct result of
Absolutely.
no
Lack of
no
connection.
no community, right? And
Hmm.
isolation.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
isolation. And so when we talk about connecting to the earth and to community, that is literally a way to have, I think, better outcomes in life. Period. You know what I mean? In this
Mhm.
pandemic, I've been working from inside the house, this, this Zoom thing, and so there is something to be said about actual human connection. But it, yeah, this, I'm
Yeah,
lost for
no,
words in
you
terms of what
no,
that means.
it's and that's the thing that I was experiencing firsthand with Africa. I'm not a scholar, I'm not into politics, but I have experienced not everything there is to know about Africa, obviously, you know, how could you ever do that? But I've experienced a lot. And that's one of the things that I saw is that, you know, that's why when people focus on, oh, you know, kind of resources, certain areas that maybe lack resources, and then the media starts to talk about poverty and you pull on people's heartstrings about poverty when it's really lack of resources. But I've been in spaces and places, literally around the world, that lacked resources, but oh my God, the spirit, the joy, the hospitality, to not have much, but you come in and they're laying out a full spread of a meal or a drink or something, and just sitting and chatting and passing the night away, with some ataya in Senegal, and there it's a tea ceremony. That ataya, it's got so much caffeine it'll make you like fly high or whatever, and be up forever. I didn't know all of that, but it's connection, and I think Africa has that on lock. Is that it's still, and I'm talking about in the village, and of course when you start getting in any city, things start to break down, and and there's clearly major cities all across Africa. It's not all village, and that's why I like to show or talk about both aspects. That people back in the day would say, well, what are you going there? Oh my God, I wouldn't be able to stay there. What do you mean? If you want to go stay in a 5-star hotel, go stay in a 5-star hotel with the most beautiful hotels and luxury items. If that's what you want to do, go do that, and your money's going to go, I don't know, along much further way if you do that, in most cities on the continent than going to Europe or something like that. So you don't have to stay in a village. I don't think everybody's meant to, not everybody wants to go camping. Shoot, half of Americans don't even go outside.
Yeah. Yeah, I subscribe to some folks that are living in Accra in Ghana, right? And the real estate prices in Accra are closer to New York prices. They are like,
I've heard.
when people think Africa is like cheap, like, yeah, you can live cheaply, but if you want to be in some major metropolitan area, if you want to be in Abuja, if you want to be in Accra, if you want to be in Cape Town or Johannesburg, it's going to cost you. Those are truly metropolitan cities. They're international cities, and the price is reflected there.
Now, so I just want to speak on that for a bit, because one, I lived in Ghana also, in Accra, and again, this is over 22 years, and that wasn't, your money goes still further than here. Yeah, now I just came back from Sierra Leone in November, and we were talking about the prices and the rents and stuff in Ghana, and I've been in Johannesburg and Cape Town and all of those things, and yes, they're they can be expensive, but I don't think it's more. I mean, in some cases it might be, depending on what you're looking more than here, but in general, it's not.
Right.
So,
yeah. Good point. Yeah, I mean, you clearly can find the bargain.
Yeah, you can find, and your money goes a lot further most times, than here.
Yeah, that's just like when people are. So the place I have property is in Belize, right? And so people say, this one lady posted the other day, can I live on $1,200 a month? That's my Social Security or something like that. Can I live on that in Belize? I said, first of all, $1,200 a month in the US is almost the poverty line. So you can definitely live on that in Belize, but it would behoove you to move out of the country with those funds, because the cost of living is much cheaper in other places, unless you want to live on a beach, because
exactly, the beachfronts and stuff like that, especially now.
All of these places have tourist destinations that are going to be crazy expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And people are buying up the property and the land and all of that. So it can be, very challenging, but at the end of the day, there are options, and there are options all over Africa. And Africa's huge. We know this, and multiple cities, and just, there's so much, there's plenty of opportunity. But yeah, and again, my first journeys were happening 22 years ago, and, you go to ATM and the exchange rate, and you might get stacks of funds and have to, you didn't, these are things you don't think about, oh, I'm going to get $100, and you're not thinking that you're going to get a stack of cash, this high. Where are you going to put it? You have a purse, you have a bag somewhere. Yeah. So, but, at least in Ghana and Senegal, the crime and activity, you talked about the gun violence and stuff, that I didn't experience in, and to this day, it's not a high crime level as far as murders in Ghana and Senegal. I can't speak on Nigeria and all of those places.
Right.
Joburg, a little bit.
Crimes of opportunity. Somebody might, if you leave your phone laying out, somebody might snatch it and run.
Or a pickpocket,
Right. So let me ask you about how your friends and family receive your travel, and do you get any kind of crazy questions or people who are reluctant to understand why you do what you do?
Yeah. Well, when I started traveling, yeah, again, there weren't many people talking about traveling to Africa in my circles. And now it's a little bit different. But so I always have conversations. I would do interviews and different things just about my experiences and share about going to, Goree Island or Elmina or Cape Coast, and as going to these slave dungeons where there's these doors of no return, and being able to stand in those doors, not only myself, but while once in Senegal I stood with three generations of my family in that. My niece, who is now 30, I don't know, 35-ish, sorry, she she was 14, and her first flight was to come visit me in Senegal. So her first flight was
Wow.
to Africa, right? So um I can see in my own family, and I'm big on, yeah, we can talk and try to have platforms. In my opinion, these days, everybody's seeking what is their platform and their followers and all of that. But our greatest platform is within our own families, right? Because if we all focused on our own, first of all, individual health, wellness, healing, and I think culture and tradition and spirituality all come into play on that. If you focus on your own, and then that will expand out to your family. And if we all did that, we wouldn't need all these platforms and be an influence. Influence who? Influence yourself and influence your family, and then we'd all probably progress a lot faster. So
Yeah. So I so you I don't know. I guess I like debating with people.
yeah,
You
I
might
know
not
you
be
do.
one.
Yeah, I already was preparing. I was
There
like
you
waiting
go.
to see what type of, we're going to talk about how polygamy creates, you know, is
See,
the
I wasn't
recourse
even
for
going.
erectile dysfunction. Like
I
I just,
wasn't.
I'm like, I'm just saying, like I'm
I wasn't
prepared.
going to talk about that. But now that you mentioned it, you live in a society with functioning and accepted, um, you know, polygamous cultures. Now,
Mhm.
how was that?
Yeah, so I learned a lot. I continuously learn. I've learned a lot by experiencing and being. And what I want to say is that not all of those, even in a culture that's the standard and it's the norm, that's not always still acceptable, because there are times when people don't do the right thing. So ideally, if you're in a polygamous relationship, you are sharing resources and time and intimacy and with fairly and equally, between those spouses. And that spouse knows when they get married that they're in a polygamous relationship. And I can only speak about Senegal. And that I think even when they sign up to get married, they indicate that and all of this stuff. But what I've seen is that still doesn't always, lies abound with humans, right? So sometimes there are lies, and people, there's hurt feelings with women. And I would just share this one story. I was in a telecenter, and there was a young girl, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around polygamy and how it works. And there's a language barrier because I couldn't speak the language. So I couldn't really get into in-depth conversations all the time. And the people that I could, they were males. So I could never really get the women's perspectives. But I did ask this one young sister who she was about to be fourth wife. And I asked her, well, why is that? Why would you do that? She said, oh, she was like, then I don't have to spend all my time with it. She basically was like, he'll be here, be with all his other wives, and I only have to deal with him like X amount of times. But she reaped the benefit of being the younger fourth wife. She could, get her economics, get her hair done, get her, whatever. And I had to really think about that. And I was like, oh, perspective I never even thought about. Like that not everybody is, forced or victim. There are conscious choices that everybody makes, and there's all types of stories and experiences. And I have plenty of stories to tell about that, but I'm going to choose, not to in this platform. Yeah, but I've learned a lot. And and honestly, in my own Fulani village, I will say this, and so I didn't want to get into the details, but you know, there was conversations about that, like me being a second wife to someone, and I kept saying, "Oh, my dad won't let me," and da 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 da. But then he said, you know, his wife, his first wife, who I adore to this day, he just recently passed. I think it's been about a year. Um, but I would go and stay at their house, and you know, and finally I just said, well, how would this work? Just humor me to the wife, the first wife, and it was through a translator. And she said, well, he could be in the States for 6 months and he could be here for 6 months. And you know, and she kind of, they love me. I've been going to Senegal for 22 years and my family there loves me. So why wouldn't I? Took it as an honor that they wanted me to formally be a part of the family and to so I didn't feel it was like I wasn't insulted. Like, oh, I want to be you want me to be second wife? I didn't feel insulted, you know, by that. Um, but it
Wow.
wasn't my
Wow.
interest. But that's my family, and I, you know, I've stayed in their house, and so yeah.
Yeah, my whole thing about polygamy is that it all relationships can have problems, regardless of what they are. Same sex, polyamorous, monogamous, whatever, it doesn't matter. But in we don't have the it's you can have a same sex marriage here before you can have a polyamorous marriage here. And I
That's
think
interesting.
that's just you know, it's just I think we as a people really function in a polygamous, polyamorous way. Black folks, I ain't worried about nobody else. We authentically function like that, but our culture is not set up to accept the functioning of that. So my thing is we're already doing it. It's called cheating, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there's nothing innately wrong with human beings. Human beings have needs and have ways of functioning that are not really articulated in our cultural norms here,
Exactly. Yeah.
right?
And
So why are we fronting? Like, let's
and there are
figure out a
rules to
way.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
You if a man knew, look, man, stop being a bum, go out and work your butt off. And yeah, you can actually
Mhm.
have instead of a girl across there, you can actually have two wives. Like go work for it, make it real. Stop, having babies and moving on without really taking care of the seeds. But anyway,
Yeah.
I
So,
digress.
but I
That's
think
not where I
that
wanted to go with the
yeah,
conversation, right?
but I think where it goes to a broader awareness is being a, for me, traveling as much as I have around the world, it allows me to expand my understanding as opposed to just having a knee-jerk reaction and saying, oh, this is not right. This is, you know, why are they doing this? Because that's the lens of maybe of how I was raised. And I'm not talking about relationships. I'm talking about just life in general. Is that the more you travel, you're literally carrying your energy from one space to the next. You're moving through portals into other dimensions. People don't realize that because I have this idea, I mean, for me, is that, you know, people say, oh, you get sick because you drink the water and you do this. I don't believe that to be completely the case. I think it may have, you know, a lot to, there are times that, you know, that is a factor. But also, when we move, especially into Africa, we go through a detoxification process through all of our energy bodies, right? And so you have to allow the time to be in the space to now shed all that you've been carrying, all of this ancestral trauma that we deal with and we don't even know. Then you get on the continent and there's this sense of peace. There's this sense of and there's this breath that's taken and now the body has to adjust to that. So yeah, what is it going to happen? You're going to start releasing and you're going to release through, you know, physical means. So I
A,
just have a whole different concept. Yeah.
I'm a quote that a sense of, whew,
Yeah.
that's a
You know,
real thing. That's a real,
it
because
is.
again, I'm generally not a quote unquote racist person, right? But coming up in the cultural community, I was always a kind of middle of the line guy, right? When back in the '90s, I had lots of friends that were like, the Khalid Muhammad, the white man's the devil, blah 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 blah, right, right. And so I was not that guy. I was always, we just want to do us. We're not trying to dog them or whatever like that. But one thing I enjoy about traveling to melanated places is literally the lack of white people. Like I feel like here at every turn, there's their eyes glaring to see if I mess up, to be penalized in this land. If you don't pay your taxes, if you run a red light, if you have a child and lose your job, all of which can end you up in prison. You feel me? Like I'm you know, I'm older, right? And I was, you know, in the dating world and dating certain folks, and for the longest time I had not allowed myself to date women who wanted children, because here in this land, literally procreation could mean incarceration. I'm not trying to be Jesse Jackson, but that's what it could mean. And I could never allow myself to do that. It's only recently that I said, you know what? I'm a Baba. I'm Baba Kamal. Like, I'm a great father. Why would I not want to be a father again? Like, I cannot let the fear of the way this world works limit me from potentially bringing a great life into the world. Although I will say, I have restricted that to only really having children outside of this country. One, for economic reasons, and two, for cultural reasons. If that makes any sense to you. So
it does. And also the concept that you said, you know, because being in Africa and seeing just like all Black people is just something that is indescribable. But then I had an experience, couple of experiences that where it felt challenging because, let's just use Senegal. People would see me and they're like, "Oh, you're white," and no, I'm not white. No, you're white. And then I had a different experience where I'm in a downtown, you know, when you're in city traffic and, you know, all of the marketplace that's on the street, you know, you can get soap, you can get whatever right from your car. Everything is right there, which is the beauty of Africa. And someone saw me, a brother, and he was like, "What's up, my nigga? What's up?" And I was just like, "Whoa, don't call me." And so the people in the car were trying to explain why I was upset, why he addressed me in that way. And so now he's walking because, you know, it's traffic, is so much traffic. And, you know, he's walking, we're inching. And I had my head turned this way and he kept trying to say, Balma, which is like, excuse me, and Wolof, Balma, Balma. And I wouldn't acknowledge him. Finally, I let him walk like come to block. Finally, I just turned to the brother. I said, Bob Nala. And, you know, because, you know, that's how you end a dispute, right? And, but the thing is, I had to think then, what is this concept of, and we looked at, you know, our music and the movies at the time and like, well, he didn't mean anything by it. And I knew he didn't mean anything by it because he looked at it at, this is Black culture. I'm going to show you that I know Black culture. So I'm going to address you in this way because this is what I see, you know, on the movies or whatever. Yeah. And that's just reality, right? So, but I had to address that. And then I'm in Senegal and, you know, I'm seeing all my uncles and aunties and some people are like, "Oh, you look cooler," but mostly I wasn't seeing that. And then I go into, when I finally went to East Africa, because I was in West Africa, let's say Ghana, Senegal, Togo, Burkina. I've been in all those places. And then I go into Kenya and now they're sending me to the Kenyan side. I was like, "Oh, this big forehead is getting me." No disrespect to my East Africans, but you know, I always say, you know, you got a little more junk in the trunk, you know, on one side and a little more forehead up at the top.
Like, you trying to say the East Africans have more junk than the West Africans?
No, I'm really not trying to say either because I'm not trying to get in any fights, but I'm just saying sometimes generalization, this is not always, and sometimes, you know, West Africans might have a little more junk in the trunk, but then the East Africans might have a little up here on the forehead action or whatever. But so yeah,
I got a 5 head, not a 4 head.
Anyway, but I'm being facetious. But in Kenya was the first time, and then when I went in Ethiopia was the first time ever I could walk by and like no one even bat an eye, you know, towards me, where I didn't get to experience that so much in Ghana and Senegal. You know, it was still kind of apparent, like, "Oh, she's a foreigner" type of deal. So I didn't get that sense of like, you know, so.
Right. So if you had to, and we're getting ready to shut it down, it's almost an hour. If you had to, some words to say to folks to encourage them to travel, explore the world, not be afraid. Oh, before we get there, there's one thing that you talked to me about in terms of dual citizenship. So can you talk about whoa, blow, 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 blow. Can we talk about expatriation? Can we talk about expatriation around the world?
You mean repatriation?
No, we're gonna X this place and read there.
Okay. Hey, different perspectives,
No, I don't. Go
So
ahead.
yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I can't really speak on the expatriation, but I can speak on this dual citizenship. So I was one of the first people ever back in 2003 to take the African ancestry test. I think I was like the ninth person ever. And so fast forward, Sierra Leone now has a program where, if you can show through your African ancestry DNA, not just through any old DNA company, but it's specifically through African ancestry and maybe some others, I'm not sure. So I recently went with a group with African ancestry in November and applied for my Sierra Leone citizenship and received that and took my oath and pledge of allegiance, which was pretty surreal. I was doing okay like the whole trip because it wasn't my first trip to Africa, whereas a lot of people traveling, that was their first trip. So, but then when we're in the president starts to speak and just like everything
you
just
were a part of that group.
Which group? I mean, there's been multiple groups.
Okay,
There's been multiple groups.
There's a brother online.
Yes, he was
big YouTube follower.
Yes, he has big one. He takes groups there. He was there also during the time, with his group. But yeah, so there's been a couple of groups. But yeah, and so the thing is, this passport that was issued by Sierra Leone is an ECOWAS passport. So not only do I have entryway into Sierra Leone, but all the West African countries and Fiji and the Philippines, I hear. So yeah, so if anything goes down and yeah, I'm like, pick a method, pick a place.
So really the only reason you work a job is so you can travel. That's probably
pretty much
the only reason. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's a whole nother story. Yeah. Because I have multiple businesses. And yeah, and that is a part of why I became a consultant. I've been 17 years as a chief financial officer for nonprofit organizations. And it is why part of the reason I became a consultant, because I've left and traveled and came back and did my thing. So yeah.
Where'd you go to school?
I received my degree from University of Maryland, University College. I originally went to WVU and tried to party too much and wasn't really the thing. Ended up underneath the toilet.
Do you know my frat brother Smoke?
Real name? What's his actual name? Huh?
Joe Bratton. Joe Bratton.
He went to WVU.
You were there in '88.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of your frat brothers that went there. Will Robinson, they all Qs and right.
Yeah, I'm a Q. Joe probably would have been coming out maybe around then. But
yeah, that name doesn't sound familiar. But
Smokey
I know. Yeah. So so that's where I'm at. I am going to Tanzania in October for 3 weeks. I am just trying to experience. I am a connector. I'm a bridge. I'm a medium. I'm a vessel. That's a part of my destiny. So I have been one of those that bridge across the waters. So I have not taken roots yet as of this particular point in time. I've traveled to 26 countries, I think 12 or so plus in Africa, and have spent about 2 years total of all my travels out of this country. But I technically do have land in Senegal. That's a whole nother story. But I haven't made my decision yet as to where I might build and end up when I grow up.
Settle down.
When I get older.
All right, Peter. Pan. So
when I grow up.
How can we encourage other folks to get out into this big world and to see it? And if they feel so inclined, not spend their life dealing with Babylon Tinde.
Oh my God. I have a mantra. My nieces and nephews, they know. The criteria for travel is blue waters and black people. If there's no blue waters and black people, I'm not. That's that. Tell me that's where we're going. And these days, it's so easy to travel. I know there's a lot of fear, due to COVID and the pandemic and all of that. But my recommendation is just get over that. And there are plenty of groups, even if you're a solo travel and you want to go. Don't wait on your family and friends, because if you do that, you will never travel, because people always want to tell you.
What about the healthcare? Those countries don't have healthcare.
Yeah. Please. A lot of it is much better. How about all the nature of the trees and plants and herbs that you can get? But yeah, I think the biggest thing is really not waiting for other people to move forward in your destiny. Because if you wait for other people, you are going to shortchange yourself. And if it's on your heart to travel, it's on your heart to travel to go to Africa. There's way too many groups out here that you should not have the excuse of, oh, well, my sister didn't go or my best friend couldn't go. Go by yourself and get with some groups and make it happen. So
I see. I found that people, like, I have, again, friend groups that talk about, man, what about the healthcare? I'm like, do you realize that the United States does not have the best healthcare in the world? That you probably could go to Cuba and pay for something out of cash that you.
Yeah, my friend was just telling me about some dental work where a brother was just going to Colombia, and I was like, "Where? I need to go and get my teeth fixed in Colombia," and it's basically, half the price or whatever. But
yeah. So I think people have a lot of fear around travel, that the media in this country has done a good job of selling itself as the best place on the earth to be. Well, we really have options. We really do have
we definitely have options. I think the fear is most people, their fear is around change. And I think no matter how temporary change is or permanent, humans tend to have a fear of stepping out of their comfort zone for anything. There are people that won't even go to the next state, let alone the next country. There are people that won't leave their job. There are people that, and if you're one of those people, then you have to work on what is it that's holding you back, and stop, procrastinating on everything. Those people are procrastinating in everything in their life, not just on travel. So
yeah, we gotta live our life and explore if you're so called. So any final parting words?
Other than thank you for having this chat. I feel like, I don't know if we really got into things. An hour to talk about Africa is just, there's so much. Well, all I know is there's no place like it. So I will say this: of all the travels around the world, and I've been in India and China and Scotland and a lot of places. Nothing does the soul good like Africa. It's ancestral, it's spiritual, it's a deep thing that I say go to it. All people who say, oh, I've never been to Africa but been on these cruises, been to France and been to Europe and all that, it's not because they can't. There's something else holding them back. And I guess Africa's not meant for everybody, because if you're going to just try to go to Africa just to duplicate what you have here, then I say, and I think most people would agree, then stay here. Go to Africa and experience and learn and listen and observe, and don't try to bring what your culture here that's embedded and then try to place it in Africa. You got to let all that stuff go and be open to experiencing our ancestral and traditional wisdom. So
I see. Well, Sister Candace, thank you. I appreciate you. And I didn't start any trouble. You started the trouble.
I was like, oh God, what's he gonna ask?
You thought I was calling to mess with you?
Yeah, I did.
No, you be avoiding me on purpose. But anyway,
because I know you know how to light a fire. You like lighting the fire and then tossing it like, whoop, now what?
Oh, not at all. Me?
Yeah, okay.
Innocent me? No, not at all. Not at all. I'm Kamal, which is quiet warrior. I just asked a question.
That was divined.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Candace, and I appreciate you. All right, everybody, peace and blessings.